Let me bring in Dhirendra Kumar, the CEO of Value Research. Dhirendra, thank you so much for joining us. Last week, the government slashed interest rates on small savings. To help our viewers understand what that means, effectively from the 1st of April, PPF, the Post Office Savings, the 5-year National Savings Certificate, the Sukanya Samriddhi account and the Senior Citizen Savings Scheme, among others, have lower interest rates right now. And the thing that, there are two specific sets of people that I'm most concerned about. One is, of course, those who use the PPF, and the other are the senior citizens who rely on the Senior Citizen Savings Scheme to raise a monthly income. Now, let's go piece by piece, Dhirendra. For everybody using the PPF right now, we're in a regime where the government has told us in so many words that we should expect this rate to come down over a period of time. What advice would you give someone using the PPF?
PPF is a very popular scheme. It is among the most popular small savings scheme. But one should dissect, one should understand PPF in terms of what it is. It is a 15-year long-term recurring deposit for you in which you invest, and you get a tax break when you invest. The accumulation is, the interest that you earn is tax-free, and when you withdraw it is completely tax-free. So, and it's a very old scheme. And the guaranteed return by the government, because it's a government-sponsored scheme, there's absolute trust there. And it was fine so far, but with declining, with fall in inflation, which in line with which the rate on PPF will also come down over a period of time. Investors have to see that, is the return enough? Of course, PPF will continue to match inflation, or maybe a little lower or a little more, depending on, because the rates on PPF will be revised annually, and it will be very much in line with the prevailing interest rate. But will that be enough for individual investors? Individual investors, despite the negative return from many of these schemes, have been reasonably pleased with the return, simply because the absolute return.
The thing about the PPF, even though, and a lot of viewers will turn around and say, even at 8.1%, which is where the rate is right now, 8.1% tax-free, which is what the finance minister also said, that's a pretty good rate. But my concern with the PPF is this. It's a 15-year investment. So the effect of inflation over 15 years on something that's not beating your average inflation rate. So 8.1%, and let's be honest, it could become 6% in the next couple of years. It could become 4% even further down from there. So there's certainly no guaranteed return, and there's no guarantee at all that you'll beat inflation. And I think the lock-in of 15 years is what makes the PPF so unattractive.
PPF was very attractive at a time when accessing the market was very difficult. 20 years back, if somebody wanted to get into a stock market, it was difficult. No longer. Today, mutual funds have been able to democratize your market participation. You can diversify efficiently. You can do your SIPs. Earlier, 15 years back, 20 years back, it was not possible to do your SIP with 2,500 rupee or 1,000 rupee. Today, it is easily done. It is efficiently done. And if you can average your investment, if you can actually be if you are invested in the market in a methodical way, it will be substantially more. And the most important thing is that, fixed income is not going to make you wealthy. And that is a belief which, and India historically, Indian savers historically, for a variety of reasons, have been a fixed income oriented investor. So they have to really rethink their strategy, that this is not a great way to accumulate your savings.
It's not a great way to accumulate your savings. We keep saying that any money that you're investing for longer than 5 years needs to find its way into equity. Because if you don't invest it in equity, and you're actually not even beating inflation, you're losing money. You're not even making money, which by itself makes the PPF unattractive. Now, if you consider the fact that the rate is going to continuously go down over the next couple of years, then it really, really makes it unattractive. So PPF, you should try and avoid as far as possible. Dhirendra, the people who have to use debt are the senior citizens who were using the Senior Citizen Savings Scheme. Now, unfortunately for them, starting next month, they're going to get a far lower income in their hands with every payout. What's the alternative for senior citizens?
They are in serious trouble, because, these are the people who have accumulated their lifetime savings. and in last 5-6 years their savings which is invested here has barely been able to match inflation, sometimes not been able to earn as much as inflation. Now, and I don't think they have too many options. They have to assume risk, and they are not in a, if somebody has crossed his 60 and you don't have the defined income, you have stopped working and you are depending on your income from investments, then you don't have the risk appetite. So that they are going to be the worst sufferer because they can't assume risk, and in their lifetime they haven't assumed any risk. They have to assume a small part, they have to allocate a small part of their money in equity, and that may not go very well with them if they are not used to the ups and downs of the market.
Dhirendra, quick question: if there is someone who's using the senior citizen savings scheme, does it make sense for them to just scout around with the rest of the banks and see if there's a bank fixed deposit that perhaps beats that rate, so it's a rate that they can still capture and still lock in, maybe at least for the next 5 years?
Yes, it will be worthwhile for them to scout for the highest yielding bank deposit, and maybe if you have little more surplus, 10, 15, 20% of your money finding its way into equity, because one is that even if you are able to reconcile with lower income, the real problem will be 5 years from now when your capital remains constant and your need for income will be higher, because these returns will not be inflation adjusted.
But there is the other option, of course, one being the fixed deposit, the other one were debt funds. Now, I want to talk to you very quickly about debt funds because it is an alternative to the small savings that we were talking about. We had expected debt funds to do well because interest rates were coming down over the course of 2015. They haven't done well, really. Specific debt funds have done very, very badly. There are a couple of funds from JB Morgan that haven't done really well. The long-term gilt funds, for example, are the worst performers at 4.8%. The liquid funds have been among the best performers at 7.8%. What's going on with debt funds? And are debt funds no longer a viable option either?
No, debt funds are a viable option. And they are viable option, but investors need to be very careful about how they are approaching it. Money for few days, few weeks should be in liquid fund, and I think it has proved to be reasonably rewarding. Money for few months, consider only short-term bond fund, and money for a fixed term. You are assuming chances with a FMP, but that's the only option that you have, and that looks to be the most promising and relatively more rewarding. But when it comes to investing in a fund with ample liquidity and optimizing your return, it is not worthwhile for investors to actually get into the gilt fund, because individual investors are not tuned to this, the ups and downs of the bond fund depending on the interest rate outlook. And investors still haven't understood across that why bond funds go up and down in value, what is the linkage. So once they are faced with a credit issue, it's hugely disappointing. So investors should err on the side of caution, be with a fund which is not taking any unusual risk, and not try and optimize the return here. All
right, so quick recap of everything we talked about. Avoid the public provident fund at all costs. It doesn't seem like an attractive option to you anymore. If you're contributing to it, keep the minimum in the fund and move and stop fresh contributions at least. And try and invest your money in equity if you have a 15-year time horizon. If you're using the senior citizen savings scheme, add some equity to your portfolio, even if it's 5% to beat inflation over the long term. Look for fixed deposits that will give you higher returns and try and lock that rate in. Avoid gilt funds or government bond funds. If you are using debt funds, they're not a great place for you to be if you don't understand the manner in which that volatility functions. Choose your debt fund based on the time that you have to invest that money in. If you have more questions about your debt investments, write to us. Our email ID is at the bottom of your screen.